Welcome everyone to our Business Boost live webinar today. We're really excited to have Neville Roediger, who's an expert in business sales, particularly in the newsagency and lottery retail sectors. We're going to be exploring strategies that members can use to prepare their small businesses for sale. I've had the pleasure of working with Neville for over a decade now, and I know members will really benefit from Neville's extensive experience in this sector. We'll address some common questions and concerns members might have about selling their businesses. So Neville, thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to be here with you. So we might dive into some questions. So Neville, could you start by telling us a little bit about your background? How did you become involved in business sales and particularly the newsagency and lottery sector?
Yep, thanks Ben. Always good to catch up with you. My journey goes back almost 25 years now, and it all started when I came on as CEO for the WA Newsagents Association, and part of that role was Executive Director of NGBB. And to make a long story short, after ALNA joined up with ANF then,
yep.
ALNA now, I was part of the management buyout of NGBB.
Yep.
And the firm has been doing business here in WA since 1988. So
wow, long
have
time.
a bit of history.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
I bet your bid's changed in all that time.
It has, yeah.
So, in your experience, what are the most critical factors that business owners often overlook when they're thinking about preparing their business for sale?
Very good question, and in my opinion, a lot of people wake up one morning and think, let's sell the business and move on. And you really need to think a lot sooner about that, and you should start preparing and planning from day one you're in business. Bottom line is it's never too late to make a plan, so get started as soon as you can. The things you need to be aware of is your own expectations as to what the business means to you in terms of your own financial planning. And the other thing is you need to be aware that you're selling into a market. There are market forces, buyers and sellers. Your business is like every other business that's out there. So
yep.
You're in a competitive situation.
And I do find that it can be a bit of a knee-jerk reaction sometimes when people, something might have triggered a member in their business and all of a sudden they'll go, right, that's it, I'm selling. And that doesn't leave a lot of time and room to sort of make decisions about really planning for that sale. And I think, I suppose what I'm really interested in understanding is how can you plan for that sale and maximise the potential of your business. And so talking about that and talking about timing, what should members who are thinking about selling be doing in that sort of 6, 12, 18 months leading up to a sale? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, certainly. And that's a question a lot of potential sellers will ask us. Bottom line, there's no magic bullet.
Yep.
Okay, it comes down to sound retail business practice.
Yep.
And the things you need to focus on is, a number of things. Stock management is an obvious one. A lot of retailers will fall in love with their stock and it'll sit on the shelf forever.
Yep.
And it also particularly, if you're not in the habit of doing a regular stock take or a professional stock take, it'd be good to have at least 2 years of actual stock takes. You should just understand your business practices, things like make sure your financials are accurate, and also keep a tight rein on your costs. Having a lease that is well managed and got a little bit of longevity in it to sell through. The obvious things, the presentation of your business, it's all common business retail sense. So the business should be ready to sell at any time.
And in that sense, it can sometimes be a little bit like selling a house. Obviously, you want to present it as well as you possibly can. And then I guess that goes to valuation, and that's a crucial aspect of selling a business. And you've sort of talked a little bit about market forces. I mean, valuation is something that relates to, demand and profitability and a whole range of things. Sort of walking us through that process of valuing a news agency or a lottery outlet, what factors do you consider to be most important?
Okay. There's a couple of things. The methodology of valuing small businesses is a fairly standard and common practice. First part of the exercise we do is what we call normalisation of the profit, and that's a process where we use what we call an add-back schedule, and that is designed to give a potential buyer an idea of what we call a PBITA, which is a proprietor's earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and abnormals.
Yep.
So the idea of that is that you can compare businesses to businesses as a common denominator. Once we've done that step of the equation, we then look at historical sales of similar businesses and develop what we call a multiple of that PBITA. Okay. Important factors when it comes to selling business, I've got to say size does matter. So the bigger your bottom line, the better.
Yep.
And as an example, at the moment, if your PBIT is around, say, 150,000 a year, it's harder to sell because you're competing with the job market.
Right.
And particularly when you have strong employment, the number of people looking to buy themselves a job is lower.
Yeah.
Okay. The other side of that equation is if it's a very high number, people will fairly expect a better price for their business.
Yep.
And that can often narrow your pool of buyers because of the size of the transaction.
Okay.
The other thing worth considering is what we call a return on effort. So, for example, if you've got a 7-day a week business, people are prepared to pay more for a 5-day a week business because you don't have to put the same effort to get the same return. So it follows a bit of logic. And as we said earlier, having a well-managed, under control rent and lease is important. And the other factors that you need to be considering is the ingoing costs. And particularly with things like bonds, bank guarantees, stamp duty and a whole lot of transactional costs, they will obviously increase in line with the size of the sale.
Yep. Okay. And I'm really curious about the current market. It was actually fascinating, the comment you made about sort of competing with the jobs market in a sort of full employment economy. So what trends are you seeing in the sale of news agencies and lottery outlets, and how might those trends affect our members who are considering selling?
Okay, look, in Perth at the moment, the market has been very buoyant for the last 18 months, 2 years. And there's a number of factors driving that. Lottery West handed out some commission increases as you were part of negotiating.
And we saw those on the East Coast as well, obviously, with lottery corporations.
Yeah, they're a bit slower being implemented here, but they have come, and it's
we're not going to make any aspersions about Western Australia in that regard. No.
Okay. Well, yeah, wait a while means something.
It's all good. We like it.
Yeah, so that has really sparked interest in buyers. Also, there's population. You would see the stats where population growth in Western Australia is powering ahead. Also, there's been good growth in the residential property market. Okay. So all those factors are increasing the number of potential buyers. Yep. And also with the equity in their property, they're able to make acquisitions, and the added commission is improving the bottom lines. So it's all been very good. Interestingly, the buyers, we've got the traditional buyers, the new people to the country, mostly from Asia and the subcontinent. So they're a big force in driving the buyer market. The other trend we're noticing is the insiders in the industry are accumulating additional outlets as well. So they are.
That does seem to be a growing trend. There's more of our members that are purchasing second sites. Yep. And the next question I was going to ask you about was confidentiality. It's often a concern for sellers. how do you balance the need to market a business effectively while maintaining the confidentiality of your sales performance and so on?
Yeah, look, that's a very important issue, and it's very important from a seller's perspective that the business doesn't get disrupted. And we obviously take businesses to market without identifying them. We have confidentiality or non-disclosure agreements in place, and we like to get a little bit into the process before we introduce prospective buyers to the business and the sellers.
Okay.
But so, it's the old adage: if nobody knows you're for sale, you're not going to buy it.
No, 100%. And so let's discuss the sales process itself. On average, how long does it take to sell a business in our industry? What factors can speed up or slow down that process?
Okay. The average business sale could take 3 to 4 months to get a deal.
Okay.
Okay. And then it will take another period to actually get that through to settlement.
Yep.
So all up, you could be looking at 6 to 9 month process from beginning to end.
Okay.
Okay. We talked about market forces. To get interest, you need to be priced competitively.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I know, Lottery West, for instance, are speeding up their process now for transacting a sale, which is, great effort that they've put into making those changes. And obviously, you deal with some lottery and newsagents that have Australia Post as well. So obviously, those things can play a role in how long it takes to do the transaction too, because of training and things that are involved.
Definitely, there are a lot of players involved in the process, and one of the biggest speed humps at the moment is dealing with banks.
Yep.
And it's just a process of their bureaucracy and background checking and everything that they need to do. So with what's happened at Lottery West has been a positive.
Yep.
Okay. We just need a few other parties to come to the table and improve their processes as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good initiative, and obviously we're talking to members around the country, and so there'll be different players in different markets and so on that might impact that. But the faster we can see, franchisors, and those that might be Australia Post, might be Lottery Corporation or others. The faster we can have those processes, and those processes are important too. Obviously, they need to make sure that the people coming in are going to be able to do the job effectively. So,
and with that, one of the things we try to encourage our buyers is to start the process concurrently rather than consecutively.
Yes.
So if you can get 3 or 4 things happening at the same time, although in a lot of cases one thing is dependent on the other before you can move to the next.
Yeah, absolutely.
We try our best.
Yeah, indeed. And so what strategies have you found most effective in making a business more attractive to potential buyers?
Okay. Obviously price is critical. You need to be well priced in the market. Buyers and sellers always expect a negotiation process, so it's where you finish up that's important. But to get there, you've got to get interest to start off with. Presentation, if it looks good, it helps. Profit is critical because at the beginning it's all about the numbers, and then it's also good to make sure that you've got good processes and procedures in place. Particularly people coming into the industry, they're looking to underpin their decision, and a lot of that will come through by having good staff that know what they're doing, and also for the seller to be able to provide support after the sale.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting one when I was sort of thinking about our discussion today, how important those processes and procedures and staff training are. Because you touched on before, a business, say for instance, that trades 5 days might be more attractive than one that trades 7. But equally, one that trades 7 that's got really well trained staff, great processes and procedures, so it takes a lot of the pressure off the incoming owner, will make that business more attractive. Is that a assessment?
Oh yeah. Look, without doubt. When it comes to buyers, generally 3 reasons for buying. One we touched on earlier, somebody looking to buy themselves a job. The other one is somebody looking to buy themselves a lifestyle,
Yep.
and that could be permanent residency in the country or having a business that operates under management,
Yep.
and that's where that is critical.
Okay.
And the third one is people buy a business for wealth creation, and that's where your profit is a considerable driver.
Yep.
Yeah. The other thing is that being able to demonstrate a consistent performance over a period of time is gold in this business.
Yep.
And the other thing is when we do present the business is that there's no surprises in there.
Okay.
Nothing undermines a buyer's confidence if there's something wrong, say, on the financials.
Yep.
Yep.
And now moving on to that, could you explain how you vet potential buyers? Like, what red flags do you look for, and how do you ensure they're qualified and serious?
That is a process, and that all begins with the face-to-face interactions that we have. And it's a matter of a simple question and answer sort of process, and you very quickly get a feel as to their capability. We will often find there's two sorts of buyers out there: those that overestimate their borrowing capacity and those that underestimate it.
Right.
So we have good connections with finance brokers, and they can very quickly do an assessment as to what sort of area or price range the buyers should be looking at.
Okay.
So, like I say, personal interaction, we try and get a net asset backing overview, and with the sensitivities around privacy, etc., there's only so far we can go.
Yep.
But we also refer them to professionals in the finance industry that can give us a very quick guide.
Okay, excellent.
Yep.
Now, our members would be interested in understanding the financial side of working with a broker. Could you explain a little bit about, commission structure and any other fees involved in that process?
Yep, certainly. Business brokers in Western Australia are regulated under the Real Estate and Business Agents Act of WA. So commissions are unregulated, and we work on what we call a success fee. So we don't get paid until the seller gets paid, and we all get paid at the same time, which is at settlement. The negotiations on commission is done up front when we're looking at taking the business to market. So we'll have that conversation business by business. Okay. Sometimes we will get an engagement advertising fee, which will be payable up front, and we will refund that out of commissions on sale. Okay. So look, that's how we operate. Other brokers out there will have different methods and different scales of remuneration.
Yep. Now I might move on to the question now about inventory and equipment valuation. That can be kind of complex. What's your process for handling that during a sale?
Okay. With inventory or stock, that is done by stock takers. So that will be whatever stock is in store prior to handover.
Yep.
The stock takers will act independently, and that means they're paid 50-50 by buyer and seller, and they will be the final arbiter as what's included and what's not. The plant and equipment is a very interesting question at the minute. It's not uncommon to see depreciation schedules written down to zero.
Okay.
There's been, over the last few years, there's been investment incentives, accelerated depreciation allowances, etc. So we will often go to the depreciation schedule as a guideline.
Right.
Okay. That does have implications tax-wise, because if it's written down, then the seller may be up for capital gains tax.
Yeah.
The other method that we often use is what we call a fair market value. Fortunately for businesses like News, Lotto, post offices, it's basically shop fittings, point of sale system, security system, and a bit of furniture. So it's fairly straightforward. But it's something that sellers should approach with a bit of advice from their accountant.
Yep, terrific. And then the other one was, I wanted to know a little bit about the sort of legal or financial aspects that sellers should be particularly aware of, such as employment liabilities or tax implications. I know at our roadshow meeting here in Perth last night, I talked a little bit about transfer of business and sellers and buyers needing to be aware of the entitlements that shift from the current owner to the new owner in a business sale. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, those are all dealt with in the business sale agreement.
Yep.
Okay. And you need to understand what the liabilities are and the notice periods. And one of the things that we do, once we've got a deal in place, our role changes somewhat.
Yep.
We are no longer the negotiator of the deal, and the role becomes more like a project manager.
Okay.
Because we need to manage a lot of things from a lot of different people. And one of the items that goes on that list is the buyer working out who they want to keep from the staff.
Yep.
And giving the seller opportunity to give them the correct amount of notice.
Yep.
Also, when we're in the process of listing a business, we like to get start dates of staff, and that'll give us a guide as to what liabilities the seller will have.
Okay.
Okay. One common thing that's often missed is the belief that casuals don't qualify for long service leave.
Yep.
Okay. So again, it's advisable for sellers to get correct advice and just understand what their liabilities are as soon as they can in the process.
Yeah, and increasingly that's something ALNA has offered as a bit of a service with our IR support, is
Yep.
we've assisted quite a lot of members and then new members coming in with actually doing those calculations and understanding what those liabilities are and so on. So that's
Yep.
been a growing area of inquiry with members.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. And sort of based on your experience, what are the most common pitfalls that sellers encounter and how can members avoid them?
Okay. Probably the biggest pitfall is that they really need to prepare themselves for the process.
Yep.
And there's a couple of challenges that they'll be confronted with. First one is the emotions, particularly if you've been in business for a long, long time.
Yep.
It's not quite like selling your firstborn, but it can feel like it.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Yep.
So you need to understand the psychology that goes with that.
Yep.
The other thing, as we said earlier, the process can be drawn out and protracted, and you need to prepare yourself for what we call deal fatigue.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So, and the other thing is you also need to have a very clear idea of what your expectations are.
Okay.
Okay. When we talked about market forces, your expectations bear nothing to what you paid for the business.
Yes.
And it has no relationship to what your retirement needs are.
Yeah.
Okay. The market is what the market is, and that's where planning becomes so critical. If you're depending on the sale of your business for your retirement needs,
yep.
You might need to, change your expectations, I guess.
And that's probably a good example of where, if that is the case, a lot of planning needs to go into selling your business. Like, what is the right time to do that? Do I need to wait a couple of years, or is it better to go now and then do something else for a couple of years? Thinking about all those different variables that might be connected to that transaction and the timing of when you are looking to retire. And as you say, a lot of members do get a little bit fixated about what I paid, what I think it's worth, and to your point, it's ultimately worth what somebody will pay for it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's been terrific. So finally, do you have any parting advice for our members who are just starting to think about selling their business? I know we've touched on a lot of those points. Is there anything specific that stands out?
The obvious one is planning, as you say. The other thing is get good advice, okay? And that can be from your broker, your accountant. And when I say good advice, they need to be able to demonstrate to you what is happening with actual sales in the marketplace.
Okay.
Okay. We can take any business to market at any price, but you've got to understand, the old adage is if you're prepared to wait long enough, you'll get your price.
Yeah.
So there's a trade-off between price and timing, and that's where understanding your expectations and needs is important.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you know, we encourage new buyers coming in to make contact with your representative, Dean, over here.
Yep.
And he provides excellent support going through a number of those issues that we've talked about.
No, that's terrific. And I was just thinking about that also around that timing issue. Timing of lease is, I think, really important too. You've touched on a few times about having a solid lease in place. And so I guess thinking about timing is like, you know, are you offering the business for sale when you've got a good runway and options on the lease? Or is it better to offer the business at a time when there's able to be some negotiation with the landlord on a new lease? What's your view on that?
It depends how good your crystal ball is, Ben.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, and the past history has been there has been negotiations entered into, and there has been some rent reductions out there.
Yep.
It will depend landlord by landlord and lease by lease. Typically, in your major centres, you'll have a 5-year lease with no options. So where you enter negotiations with those sort of leases, it would be better earlier part of the lease.
Yeah.
Some of the smaller centres and strip shops have leases with a number of options, so it's not so critical. Thing to look at is market rent reviews and when they occur.
Okay, terrific. Well, thank you very much, Neville. It's been wonderful for you to share your wealth of knowledge with us today on this Business Boost Live webinar. To our audience out there, as Neville said, if you're over here in Western Australia as we are today, you can touch base with Dean and he can put you in contact with the right people if you're considering selling your business. Obviously, in the other states, we've got all of our other ALNA state managers who'd be more than happy to assist you as well in those jurisdictions. And yeah, really appreciate everybody joining us today. If you've got further questions, do reach out to ALNA, reach out to Neville, and we look forward to seeing you on our next Business Boost Live webinar. Thank you very much, Neville.
Thanks, Ben. It's been a pleasure.
Fantastic.
Thank you. You're good.